Okay, so this will be our last topic in biochem, which is focused on protein metabolism. As you can see, iba yung PowerPoint na gagamitin ko compared to the one posted in your canvas. Okay, I will give you a copy of this PowerPoint. Okay, maganda kasi yung PowerPoint na to kasi complete siya, unlike the one in canvas. Okay. So, complete siya in a sense na ito yung mga topics na kaya niya i-cover. Okay? So, we'll take a look into how proteins are digested and absorbed in the body. And, di ba, alam naman natin yung proteins gawa yan sa amino acid. So, once they are digested, ano mangyayari sa mga amino acids natin? Okay? Dito makikita natin kung paano siya nagagamit to produce energy and to produce amino acids then. Okay, and then we will also take a look into how hemoglobin is catabolized in the body. Okay, kasi alam naman natin yung ating hemoglobin nasisira din yan over time. Now, may lifespan yan. So, how is it degraded in the body? We'll take a look into that. And then, we'll also take a look into proteins and elements that or molecules that contain sulfur, paano tayo nakagawa ng proteins from them, and paano tayo nakakuha ng energy from them. Okay? And of course, most importantly, the interrelationship of all metabolic pathways that we discussed. Okay? So, let's begin first with the protein digestion. So, na-discuss na natin sa carbohydrate metabolism na yung ating mga kinakain, okay, for example, yung starch, it is being digested starting from the mouth. No? So, sa bibig pa lang, nasisira na yung ating carbohydrates. No? So, with the help of our enzyme amylase, ayun, so napuputol-putol na yung carbohydrates into smaller sugar units called dextrins. Okay? Tapos alam natin sa body natin, sa sa tulong ng ating mga gastric juices, mas lalo siyang mapuputol into simpler sugars and eventually it will get absorbed in the intestines. Okay? So yun yung alam natin sa carbohydrate metabolism, then papasok siya ng glycolysis, Krebs cycle, etc. Sa lipid metabolism naman, ang idea natin is that even sa mouth pa lang, no, nag-start na yung kanyang digestion. So, kumbaga, yung lipids na breakdown natin into smaller pieces and then nagiging ano siya, para siya nagiging, what do you call this? Micelles, okay? And the micelles na yon eventually lumiliit yon further and it gets absorbed by the intestines as well. Okay? And ngayon naman, let's talk about proteins, no? Kasi unlike our lipids and carbohydrates, the digestion of protein starts in the stomach, okay? So, hindi siya nag-start sa bibig. Although, syempre, nginunguya mo yon. Pero yung start ng digestion process sa stomach talaga, okay? Bakit kaya, no? Because in our stomach, it contains enzymes such as gastrin. And gastrin activates the enzyme pepsinogen. Okay? And alam natin yung mga pepsinogen, magiging pepsin yan. Okay? And that pepsin can be used to cleave our peptide sequences. Okay? Yung mga peptide bond. Okay? So, yan. So, yan yung bali nangyayari. No? So, sa stomach pa lang, ma-activate na yung ating pepsinogen and pepsin. No? So that, mapuputol na niya yung peptide bonds sa ating body. Okay? So, yan. So, the pepsin affects the hydrolysis of at least 10% of our peptide bonds sa food na kinain natin. Okay? So, yan. Zoom in ka. So, yan. Sa stomach siya nag-start and eventually, mapuputol-putol yan. Okay? Another thing to keep in mind is that yung ating mga proteins, ito. So, wala naman tayo masyadong info na makukuha dito. So, yung ating mga proteins, napuputol yan further in the intestine. No? parang mga ano lang, lipids. So, di ba? Mapuputol yan starting sa mouth, then stomach, then majority of them mapuputol sa intestines natin. So, proteins also have the same fate, no? So, only 10% of the proteins will get digested in the stomach with the help of pepsin, okay? Pero pagdating ng intestine, dun mas nagiging complete yung digestion natin. Why? Because apparently, in our stomach, no, as your food goes down the intestine, okay, marami tayong enzymes doon, okay, such as the pepsin, trypsin, and the chymotrypsin, okay? Ayun. So, pag na-release yan sa ating food, it will further degrade your peptide bonds, no? Para siya ay maging individual amino acids. Okay? So, puputulin yung peptide bonds, magiging individual amino acid. And then, once we have an individual amino acid, doon na sila na-transport through our bloodstream. Okay? So, papasok na sila into our intestinal linings and then eventually into our bloodstream. And pag yan ay nakapasok na sa bloodstream, it will be transported to different cells in the body for further processing. Okay? So overall, ito yung summary natin. Okay? So again, yung mouth, wala siyang effect pagdating sa ating protein. However, yung stomach, dun tayo nagkakaroon ng first digestion process. Okay? So, the HCl helps denature the protein kasi alam natin proteins are denatured by acids. Okay? So, masisira yung ating mga globular proteins. Magiging ano sila? Flat. Okay? Magiging linear sila. And then, pag naging linear na yun, pwede na siya putulin ng ating mga enzymes like pepsin. Okay? So, pag naputol-putol yan, they will travel down the small intestine wherein more enzymes are awaiting, such as trypsin, chymotrypsin, carboxypeptidase, and aminopeptidase. Okay? So, yan yung mga enzymes that will cut them eventually into individual amino acids. And then, once we have our individual amino acids, no, they can pass through the intestinal lining, going into the capillaries, waiting to be transported by the blood. Okay? So, yan. So, yan. So, pagkadaloy sa dugo, doon na siya madadala into our cells sa body. Okay? Short review. Protein digestion begins in the blank and is completed in the blank, resulting in the release of amino acid. Okay? So, ano sagot natin? So, sabi natin, ang digestion ng protein sa stomach yan. Okay? With the help of HCl, the acid there, and the pepsin. And then, the further digestion will be done in the small intestine. So, our answer will be letter C, stomach and small intestine. Okay? So, since naputol-putol na yung ating mga proteins into individual amino acid, ang nangyayari is that nagkakaroon tayo ng pool of amino acids sa body. Okay? So, yung pool of amino acids sa body natin, they can be utilized by the body in order to create energy as well. Okay? So, kumbaga, lahat ng mga pinutol dito nilagay sa ating dugo. Okay? So, the amino acid pool can be used in order to maintain the balance of nitrogen in our body. Okay? Alam naman natin yung mga nitrogen, important yan, especially sa ating mga amino acids, okay? And some of the molecules sa body natin. Okay? However, it needs to be regulated kasi kapag super dami na proteins mo, okay, pag super dami na ng protein, sometimes may mga byproduct yan na dangerous. Okay? So later, may insight uli ako about those who take yung mga whey protein. Okay? May sasabihin ako sa inyo about it na. Say, when you take whey protein, you are introducing huge, no, humongous amounts of proteins in your body. Okay? Ang tandaan natin, it should be balanced na. Okay? So, some of them will be turned into waste materials. And kapag maraming waste materials, dangerous yun. Okay? Later na yan. Anyway, so alam natin that our amino acids can be utilized by the body in creating protein synthesis. Okay? So, pwede sila pagdugtungin uli in order to create proteins that are necessary. Okay? Pagpasok nila ng cell, yung mRNA, ita-translate sila ng ribosome into proteins. Okay? So, mare-recycle sila. Sometimes, yung ating amino acids, pwede rin siya gamitin by our body to synthesize non-protein nitrogen-containing compounds. Ito yung mga heterocycles natin, such as purines and pyrimidines. So, saan nyo nakikita yung mga purines and pyrimidines? Sa nucleotide bases, di ba? Yung ATCG natin. Okay? So, pwede nila gamitin yung nitrogen from our amino acids from the diet. O pwede rin naman niyang gamitin yung mga nitrogen in synthesis of heme in our hemoglobin. Okay? So, yung hemoglobin, may nitrogen atoms yon, 4 na nitrogen atoms that connect to iron. Okay? And without hemoglobin, patay na tayo. Kasi it is the hemoglobin that attracts oxygen and delivers oxygen to our body. Okay? Pwede rin natin gamitin yung amino acid from our diet to synthesize non-essential amino acids. Okay? So, 'di ba, alam natin hindi lahat ng amino acid kaya gawin ng body, 'di ba? There are non-essential amino acids. Ano 'yon? WH, T, FVR, MI, LK. Yung with William Howard Taft, Fidel V. Ramos, milk. Naalala niyo pa 'yon? So apparently those amino acids cannot be synthesized by our body. Okay? So ibig sabihin kunin mo siya from plants, okay? And of course, most importantly, our amino acids can also be used to get energy. Okay? So kaya nga dun sa common metabolic process nakikita nyo, yung carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins, they eventually join the Krebs cycle. Okay? So later makikita natin how. Okay? So, amino acids, once na nasa stomach na siya, hindi siya agad-agad gagamitin for protein synthesis na. Siyempre, kailangan pagkunan muna natin siya ng energy. Kasi sayang no? So, alam niyo, matalino yung utak natin. Hindi niya agad gagamitin yan into something else. As much as possible, it wants to utilize the amounts of our amino acid to be converted into products that can be used in Krebs cycle. Okay? So that means our proteins need to be degraded first. Okay? So, yung ating mga atoms in our amino acids, they can be converted into some molecules that can be used, okay? Can be utilized in our metabolic processes. Okay? So, such as yung mga carbon portion ng ating amino acid, pwede sila gamitin in the production of energy, or kaya pwede rin sila gamitin in production of triacylglycerol, glucose, ATP, and ketone bodies. Yung mga nitrogen naman, nitrogen portion ng ating amino acid, pwede siya gamitin for biosynthesis of non-essential amino acids, biosynthesis of non-protein, nitrogen-containing compounds such as heme in hemoglobin, okay, and our nucleotide bases, and then yung sobra na nitrogen, dinidiscard natin in the form of urea. Okay? So, yun. So, a short review. Amino acids produced in the body, produced during the protein digestion, enter the blank of the body. So, ano lang yan? Amino acid pool na. So, lahat ng mga pinutol na amino acid, pagsasama-samahin yan ng body natin to create the amino acid pool, and all the atoms there will be used in many processes. No? Yung carbon, pwede siya gamitin into metabolic pathways. Yung mga nitrogen, pwede siya gamitin to create other compounds in the body na nangangailangan ng nitrogen. So now, let's take a look on how it is really utilized. No? So, syempre, dapat may mga chemical reaction dyan. The key chemical reaction of our amino acids when they enter the body is the transamination and the oxidative deamination. So, let's define the two. Pag sinabi nating transamination, basically, we are going to transfer the nitrogens. Okay? So, ito transfer mo yung nitrogen groups. No? Basahin natin yung actual definition niya. It is a biochemical reaction characterized by the interchange of the amino group in an alpha amino acid with a ketone group of alpha keto acid. So, basically, yung ketone, magsaswap siya with amine. Okay? Magpapalit lang sila. And then for the oxidative deamination, it uses other redox molecules such as NADH, okay, or NAD plus. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, makakuha nga tayo ng energy from our proteins. So, let's take a look into some transamination processes in the body. So, kunwari, ito, so we can actually produce glutamate, one amino acid, okay, via transamination. Okay? So, paano yun? So, of course, we start with an alpha-ketoglutarate. So, familiar kayo dyan. Nababasa nyo yan sa Krebs cycle, di ba? So, the alpha-ketoglutarate can be converted into glutamate, okay? Which is an amino acid that can be used in our proteins, okay? So, paano napoproduce yan? So, our alpha-ketoglutarate reacts with another amino acid, okay? And then, ang mangyayari is that the amino group here will be transferred to this carbonyl carbon. Okay? So, bali magsuswap sila ng functional group. So, itong carbonyl, malilipat dito. Sorry. Yung carbonyl, malilipat doon. Yung amine, malilipat dito. Okay? So, yun yung transamination. Magpapalit sila ng carbonyl and the amino. And that produces glutamate. Okay? From our amino acid. So, itong amino acid, kahit anong amino acid yan. Okay? So, yun. And then, one of the products will be a keto acid. Okay? So, yung keto acid, pwede yung maging ketone body. Okay? And alam niyo naman yung mga pwede gawin sa ketone body. Pwede tayo dyan gumawa ng acetyl coenzyme A ulit. Diba? Ayan. So, anyway, so yan yung way of producing glutamate in our body. Okay? Via transamination. So, this is just one of the many examples of transamination. What else? We also have aspartate production. So, oxaloacetate, kilala nyo yan. Ito ay nasa Krebs cycle, diba? So, if our oxaloacetate reacts with a glutamate, okay, pwede tayo mag-transamination. So, itong carbonyl, lipat mo dito. Yung amine, lipat mo doon. So, mangyayari, makakaproduce tayo ng aspartate. Okay? And you know, aspartate is one of the amino acids. And look, tignan nyo yung nangyari. We were able to produce alpha-ketoglutarate ulit. Okay? So, yun. So, itong alpha-ketoglutarate, pwede yung gamitin in Krebs cycle. Okay? So, yun. So, napapansin nyo, no? Very resourceful yung ating body. So, kung gusto niya gumawa ng glutamate, gagamit siya ng alpha-ketoglutarate. Tapos kahit anong amino acid, tapos kukunin niya yung amine nun para maging glutamate and a keto product. Okay? Itong keto product na to, pwede rin pumasok ng ketogenesis. Okay? Or yan, para makagawa ng pwede tayo makagawa dyan ng acetyl coenzyme o kaya pwede rin tayo makagawa ng lipids from it, diba? Very resourceful. This one naman, kung gusto mo gumawa ng aspartate, gamit ka ng oxaloacetate which is in the Krebs cycle. Samahan mo lang yan ng glutamate, magkakaroon ng transamination, basically magsuswap lang sila, producing aspartate and the alpha-ketoglutarate which is also in the Krebs cycle. Very resourceful. Okay? So, in this process, iba naman to. So, in this case, kunwari, alanine naman. So, ano ginagawa ng alanine when you digest it in your food, no? So, kapag alanine, medyo iba yung kanyang pathway. So, gagamit tayo ng enzyme that contains pyroxidal phosphate. Okay? So, this is enzyme bound. So, yung ating alanine, it will get magkakaroon din tayo dito ng transamination. Okay? So, kasi papansin nyo, yung amine dito magiging carbonyl. So, transamination ulit yan. So, yung alanine from our diet, okay, gagamitan siya ng pyroxidal phosphate para maging pyruvate. And hulaan nyo, saan ginagamit yung pyruvate? Sa papuntang Krebs cycle, di ba? So pyruvate to from pyruvate to acetyl coenzyme A, di ba? So yun. And that will produce pyridoxamine, okay, phosphate. And then, kunwari may alpha-ketoglutarate tayo. Pwede yan mag-react with our pyridoxamine phosphate in order to produce glutamate, and we will regain our enzyme-bound pyroxidal phosphate. Okay? So, ang galing, no? Na ang ginagawa lang ng body, yung amino and yung carbonyl, pinapalipat-lipat lang niya para makagawa tayo ng mga amino acids sa body natin. Very smart. Okay? So, yun. And of course, look, no? Hindi lang amino acids yun na produce niya. It also produce some intermediate that are needed in common metabolic processes, no? Such as yung pyruvate na gagamitin sa Krebs cycle eventually, yung mga ating kanina, yung mga alpha-ketoglutarate na ginagamit sa Krebs cycle din. Okay? O yung alpha-keto acid natin, ginagamit din yan sa ketogenesis naman, di ba? Very resourceful. Okay? So that's the transamination. So basically, yung amine papalitan lang ng carbonyl and vice versa. So the next one will be the oxidative deamination. So in the oxidative deamination naman, wala kang transfer of ketone groups and amine. Okay? So yung amine, mapuputol siya from your molecule to become your ammonium ion. Okay? So that's oxidative deamination. So anong pinagkaiba niya sa transamination? Again, kapag transamination, yung carbonyl and yung amine magsuswap. However, for oxidative deamination, walang swapping na nangyayari. Rather, puputulin mo mismo yung amine in order to produce ammonia. So, oxidative deamination happens in the mitochondria. Obviously naman, okay? Kasi doon nangyayari mga oxidative phosphorylation din natin. No? So parang, kumbaga, medyo nakiki-join din siya. Okay? Pero remember, doon sa ating mga electron transport chain, oxidative phosphorylation, some of the byproducts there are NAD+, no? And those NAD+ can be utilized in oxidative deamination. Tapos magpo-produce ng NADH, and NADH can produce 3 ATP, no? So very resourceful. Very resourceful. Look, no? Other than the ATP, yung po-produce ulit siya ng alpha-ketoglutarate that can be used in Krebs cycle. Okay? So yun. So kumbaga, this is just a show, no? This is just a proof that your body is really smart in utilizing your molecules, no? Ang dami niyang pwede gawin na in a sense makakagawa siya ng final product na pero at the same time nagpo-produce din siya ng energy producing products. So very smart. However, in the oxidative deamination, it produces ammonia. Okay? And ammonia, when it builds up in the body, it is dangerous. Okay? So later, makikita natin how we can get rid of the ammonia. Okay? So, bigyan ko na kayo ng clue. Dadaan yan sa kidney. Okay? So yan, ilalabas yan natin through urea. Okay? So yan. So let's take a look into this, no? So for example, you have a 4-carbon diacid na reactant, no? Pwede tayo dyan makagawa ng oxaloacetate which can be used in Krebs cycle, okay? And amino acids such as aspartate. Kapag 5-carbon naman yung diacid mo such as glutarate, okay? Pwede ka makagawa ng alpha-ketoglutarate o kaya ng glutamate, okay? So yan. So let's have some exercise, no? Basahin natin to. Indicate whether each of the following reaction characteristics is associated with the process of transamination or with the process of oxidative deamination. Okay? Basahin natin letter A. One of the reactants is a keto acid and one of the products is a keto acid. Alam nyo na. Basta may keto acid, transamination yon. Okay, so letter A is transamination. Letter B, enzymes with a specificity toward alpha ketoglutarate are often active. So, ito yung transamination pa rin. Ayun yung yung sa alanine kanina. Ayan. So, kung makikita nyo, yung enzyme na to, ginamit niya yung alpha ketoglutarate in order to produce glutamate. Okay? So, yun. So, still transamination, letter B. For letter C, NAD is used as an oxidizing agent. So, kapag gumagamit ka ng NAD, tandaan, oxidative deamination yan. Okay? And then lastly, you have an aminotransferase enzyme that is active. That's transamination pa rin. Okay? So, basta ang clue lang dito, pag gumamit siya ng NAD, ano na yan, oxidative deamination. Pero kapag nakita nyo may mga transferase, no? May mga enzyme, may mga ketone acids, ayun ay transamination process. Okay? So, ganun lang. Next question. What two types of biochemical reactions are required for the removal of amino group from most amino acid? Okay? So, ano daw yung mga biochemical reaction na ginagamit natin pangtanggal or panglipat ng ammonia, ng amino group from our amino acid. Edi obviously, yung dalawang diniscuss natin, the transamination and the oxidative deamination. Okay? Tandaan nyo, kapag removal, included dun yung pag-transfer and yun yung ginagawa natin sa transamination. Sa oxidative deamination naman, ito yung literal na tinatanggal mo talaga yung amino group para maging ammonia. Okay? So, yan. So, eventually, okay, so after several transamination and oxidative deamination processes, okay, magpo-produce tayo ng ammonium ions and aspartate. Aspartate is okay lang, pero yung ammonium ions, ito yung medyo dangerous. Okay? So, that means it needs to be removed from the body talaga. Yung aspartate, medyo okay lang yan. Ginagamit naman talaga kasi ng body yan. Right? Okay. So, ngayon, paano natin sila tatanggalin? Okay? So, paano natin sila gagamitin to remove the ammonium ions? Okay? Into something else. Pwede tayo gumawa ng urea cycle. Cycle na naman. Okay. So when we say urea cycle, it is a series of biochemical reaction in which urea is produced from ammonium ions and aspartate as nitrogen sources. Okay. So, tandaan, kapag sobrang dami na yung ating mga ammonium and aspartate, medyo delikado yon. So, especially ammonium ions. So, they need to be get rid of the body through urea cycle. Okay? So, in the urea cycle, magpaproduce tayo ng urea with the help of carbamoyl phosphate. Okay, so the carbamoyl phosphate is one of the energy sources for the urea. Okay, so kumbaga parang ito yung ATP niya. Okay, parang ito yung energy source and it is found in the mitochondrial matrix. Okay, so basically, the urea cycles happen somewhere near the mitochondrial matrix. Okay, so nasa mitochondria siya. So there are many steps in the urea cycle. So first of all is that the carbamoyl group transfer. So basically, parang ito yung activation step. Tandaan, for every metabolic process, activation step yung first. And it includes the transfer of phosphates or some certain functional groups. Okay. And for the next one, for the second step, we will have the citrulline aspartate condensation. So from the word itself, pagdudugtungin mo sila to produce something called argininosuccinate synthetase. Okay? And then lastly, the argininosuccinate cleavage in order to produce fumarate. Okay? Ayan. So, tignan natin. So, in the first step, there needs to be a carbamoyl phosphate. So, this step is the activating step. Okay? Dito ma-activate yung ating urea cycle. So what will happen here is that we will have ornithine. Ang ornithine ay andyan talaga siya sa mitochondria natin. So basically, this amide group needs to be attached dito sa ating ornithine so that we will produce acetylcholine. Okay? So yun. Medyo kakaiba yung activation step niya kasi ang alam natin kapag activation, phosphate yung kumakabit. Pero in our case, amide group yung kakabit. Okay? So the amide group of your carbomoyl phosphate will get attached to the ornithine producing acetylcholine. And then once we have the citrulline, it will condensate with the aspartate. Okay? So again, aspartate is one of the products of transamination process. Okay? Ayan. So yung aspartate natin, magko-condense siya to form what's called an argininosuccinate. And then eventually, there will be a cleavage. Okay, so argininosuccinate will be cleaved, okay, by an enzyme to produce arginine and fumarate. Now, arginine is one of amino acids that can be used by the body, no? Okay. However, kung naalala nyo, di ba kunento ko sa inyo that arginine is the source of urea. Okay? So, yun. So, yung argininosuccinate, it will be cleaved into arginine and the fumarate. And of course, you know that fumarate will be used in the Krebs cycle again. Okay? And now, let's focus on the arginine. So, the arginine needs to be cleaved, okay, in order to form our urea. Okay? So, dito na pupunta yung sobrang mga amino, okay, amines and yung ating mga aspartate, no? So, basically, parang tinatransfer mo lang dito yung sobrang nitrogen. Okay? So, eventually, the arginine will get hydrolyzed, okay, to form the urea and the ornithine again. The ornithine will be waiting for another substrate, another carbomoyl phosphate in order to redo the cycle again. Okay? So, paikot-ikot sila. And then the urea, ano mangyayari dyan? So, it will get released from the cell. Then, it will be filtered by our kidneys. And then, we will release it in the form of urine. Okay? So basically, the urea cycle uses 4 ATP. Okay, so 2 of those ATP are consumed in the production of the carbomoyl phosphate, which we did not discuss. Okay, and then 2 ATPs are being consumed as well in step 2, giving adenosine monophosphate and an inorganic phosphate. Okay, so itong step 2, tandaan nyo, gagamit siya ng ATP. Okay. So, dalawang ATP daw gagamitin dyan. Okay? Yan. So, ito yung nangyayari. Okay, so remember, our carbomoyl phosphate, magiging ano yan? Acetylcholine, right? Okay. So, dito yung nangyayari sa loob ng matrix. Okay? So, yung ornithine, it will join with the carbomoyl phosphate so that it can be activated to have our citrulline. Then yung citrulline, it will react with an aspartate. Itong aspartate, parang ito yung carrier ng sobrang amines, okay? Yung mga sobrang nitrogen. And that aspartate will join the citrulline in order to form the argininosuccinate. And the argininosuccinate will be cleaved to form the fumarate, which will go back to Krebs cycle, and arginine. Itong arginine na to, it will be further cleaved to form the urea, which will be expelled by the body, and we will also reproduce our ornithine that is needed to keep the cycle going. Okay? So, tandaan nyo, ang waste product lang dito is our urea. So, tatanggalin mo lang yung urea, basically. And then, yung mga byproducts nun, pwede mo gamitin sa Krebs cycle. Okay? So, yun na nga. So, gaya ng sinabi ko. So, there's a linkage between the urea and the citric acid cycle. So, such as yung fumarate that will be produced and it will be converted further into aspartate in one of the steps in the Krebs cycle. Okay? Yung aspartate, pwede siya uli bumalik sa urea cycle. So, paikot-ikot lang siya. Eventually, ang goal lang naman dito is to get rid of the excess nitrogen. Okay? Basahin natin dito. So, the net effect of amino acid degradation is the production of ammonium ion, which is toxic. How is the ammonium ion eliminated from the body? So, A, it is biosynthesized for the production of non-essential amino acid. B, it is recycled in the production of amino acid. C, it is converted into urea. Okay. It is converted to urea in the urea cycle and excreted in urine. And letter D, both B and C. Tandaan, yung ammonium ion, it is being removed, no? Okay, so usually in the form of ano siya, aspartate. Okay, so yun, it will get removed from the body through the urea cycle. So our correct answer here should be letter C. Okay, so ito yung dahilan kung bakit may mga urea sa ihi natin. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to the reactions. No? Balik ulit tayo dun sa ating mga transamination, oxidative deamination processes. Okay, so tandaan nyo that in the transamination, the oxidative deamination processes, no, yung mga carbon groups, pwede siya gamitin for metabolic processes such as Krebs cycle, glycolysis, ketogenesis, so on and so forth. Okay, and then yung mga amino groups, pwede siya gamitin for other uses, no, such as production of non-essential amino acids, and then yung mga nucleotide bases natin. Okay. So, yung ating mga 20 amino acids, yan ay nakukuha from the nitrogen part of your amino acid. And then, yung mga carbon group doon, pwede siya gamitin for the production of energy. Okay? However, not all amino acids ay pwede gamitin for energy production. No? So, may mga specific amino acids na pwede tayo gamitin. Okay? So for example, we have this thing called glucogenic amino acids. So glucogenic amino acids have carbon chains that resembles some of the byproducts that are needed in, hulaan nyo, glucogenesis or even glycolysis. No? And then the ketogenic amino acids, they have carbon backbones that resembles those who can be used for the ketone bodies. And we have a list here of our amino acids that can be used for specific types of reaction. So let's look into it. Okay. Wag nyo kabisaduhin to. Gawa na lang kayo kodigo. Okay. So yan. So the alanine, glycine, cysteine, serine, threonine, and tryptophan, okay, pag kinain mo yan, they all can be converted into pyruvate, no? Okay? So, tandaan nyo yung example natin kanina, yung alanine, na-convert siya into pyruvate eventually with the help of our enzyme na teka lang. Limutan ko yung tawag. Ano tawag doon? Pyridoxy. Ito. So, yan. The pyroxidyl phosphate. Okay, so yung ating alanine, pwede siya mag-undergo sa transamination na yon, eventually forming pyruvate. And apparently, hindi lang alanine pala, no? Pwede rin natin gamitin ito. Glycine, cysteine, serine, threonine, and tryptophan. Okay? And eventually, you know that pyruvate will be converted to acetyl coenzyme A or pwede rin siya maging oxaloacetate. The oxaloacetate can be used to reproduce glucose in gluconeogenesis. Okay? Ayan. Ayan. Okay? And then yung pyruvate, pwede siya ma-convert then to acetyl coenzyme A, which will be used in the Krebs cycle. And pwede rin yung gamitin to produce ketone bodies. And yung ketone bodies, remember, pwede rin siya gamitin to produce lipids in our body. So, these amino acids naman, the isoleucine, leucine, and the tryptophan can be all converted to acetyl coenzyme A. The leucine, lysine, phenylalanine, tyrosine, tryptophan can be converted to acetoacetyl coenzyme A, which can be converted back to acetyl coenzyme A. Ay, ating glutamine, histidine, proline, arginine, they all can be converted into alpha-ketoglutarate, which will directly go into the Krebs cycle. Our isoleucine, methionine, valine, they all can be converted into succinyl coenzyme A, which will be directly used in the Krebs cycle. The tyrosine, phenylalanine, and aspartate, again aspartate, they can be converted into fumarate. Aspartate, we know that it can be converted to fumarate by urea cycle. Okay? So yan. So pag na-produce yung fumarate, directly, it can be used again to Krebs cycle. And then lastly, the asparagine and the aspartate, it can be converted as well to oxaloacetate, okay, which will directly go into the Krebs cycle. So yan yung nangyayari sa ating amino acid pool sa body, no? So pwede sila gamitin to produce another amino acids, okay, via transamination and oxidative deamination. Pwede rin naman siya magamit into energetic substances, okay, na kailangan sa Krebs cycle. Okay? So, yun yung mga nangyayari such as in the urea cycle, okay, and other cycles. Yung ibang reaction, of course, di na namin ipapakita kasi they are very complicated. But ang idea is that all of them will eventually go into the Krebs cycle. Okay? Basahin natin tong problem na to. What are the four intermediates that contain the carbon skeleton from amino acid degradation in the citric acid cycle? Madali lang yan. Ano daw yung mga intermediates na napoproduce natin from amino acid degradation na direkta citric acid cycle? We know that's alpha-ketoglutarate, succinyl coenzyme A, fumarate, and oxaloacetate. Okay? So, silang apat lang yan. Okay? Oxaloacetate, alpha-ketoglutarate, succinyl coenzyme A, and fumarate. Okay? So, our answer is letter A. Okay? So, ngayon, let's talk about the biosynthesis of amino acid. We already had an idea about it, no? And remember, pwede sila magawa via transamination and oxidative deamination process. Okay? But keep in mind that there are some non-essential amino acids, no, that can be synthesized in fewer steps than essential amino acids. Okay? Bakit kaya fewer steps yung sa non-essential amino acids, no? Kasi kaya naman 'yan gawin ng katawan natin. So hindi naman siya masyadong mahirap gawin. But the essential amino acids, medyo maraming steps 'yan. And apparently, humans cannot do it on our own. Kaya nga tawag natin essential amino acids. Kasi super daming steps niya, hindi natin kaya gawin siya. So that's why, in order for us to obtain our essential amino acids, kumain tayo ng halaman. Okay? Kasi sila, kaya nila. Okay? So, they have so much energy di ba? Remember, sila, ginagamit nila yung sunlight to produce energy as well, di ba? Mas maraming energy yung plants para makagawa ng essential amino acid than humans. Okay? So, yun. Ayun lang. Okay, so this is the summary of our starting materials for the biosynthesis of the 11 non-essential amino acids. Okay, remember, 11 yung non-essential amino acids kasi siyam doon ay essential. Ano yung siyam na essential? WHT, FBR, MILK. Okay, so yan. Actually, parang sampungan. No? Okay, so yan. Okay, so yan. So these are our starting materials in the production of the 11 essential non-amino acids. Okay, so let's talk about the glycolysis intermediates that can be used to create our amino acids. Okay, so if we use 3-phosphoglycerate, okay, it can be converted into serine. And eventually, that serine can be converted into cysteine and glycine. Okay, so if you use 3PG, ito yung mga amino acids na pwede natin gawin. Of course, the reaction, hindi na natin ipapakita kasi super dami na. Okay? Yung pyruvate naman, it can be converted back into alanine. O remember, yung alanine, pwede siya gawin pyruvate. Pwede rin mo siya baliktarin. From pyruvate, pwede maging alanine. In the citric acid cycle intermediates, okay, our oxaloacetate can be converted into aspartate and eventually into asparagine. Okay, aspartate and asparagine can be formed by transamination process. The alpha-ketoglutarate can be converted to glutamate and eventually, through transamination process, pwede tayong makagawa ng primary amine, which is the glutamine, or a secondary amine, which is the proline. Okay? Okay, so for the essential amino acids, no, yung mga phenylalanine na na-consume natin sa body, onting reaction lang, pwede mo siya gawing tyrosine. Okay? So, yun. So, let's read this problem. So, which of the following statement is our true or true of amino acids? So, letter A, non-essential amino acids are synthesized in fewer steps than essential amino acids. So, yeah, that is true. Kakasabi lang natin eh. Pangalawa, most bacteria and plants synthesize all amino acids via pathways that are not present in humans. That is correct, no? Kasi sabi ko nga, pag ginawa ng tao yan, para saan ba ang halaman? Di ba? So apparently, our body cannot synthesize all the amino acids. So some amino acids needs to be obtained from plants or even bacteria pala, no? Kasi sila ay may mga energy sources na mas marami compared to us. Hindi naman tayo katulad ng halaman na magbilad lang sa araw, may energy na. Yung plants ganun eh, marami silang energy na napoproduce, right? So, hindi natin kaya gawin yun on our own. Okay, so yan. So, letter B is also true. Letter C, plants are the major source of essential amino acids. So, that is true, no? Kaya nga, I always say na kumain tayo ng gulay. So, the answer for this problem is all of the above, na all the above. Because, yun, hindi natin kaya mabuhay on our own without essential amino acids. Okay. So, ako siguro isasuggest ko na lang sa inyo that you memorize these things. Don't memorize pala. Gawa lang kayo ng let's say kodigo. Okay? Para alam nyo saan sila pwede gamitin. And of course, those processes are reversible. Okay? So, pwedeng amino acids ma-convert into intermediates that can be used in glycolysis, Krebs cycle, or ketogenesis. And pwede mo yan i-reverse, no? Okay? So, from glycolysis, Krebs cycle, or ketogenesis intermediate, pwede ka magagawa ng amino acids. Of course, there are several steps here, pero hindi na natin i-include kasi super haba na ng ating discussion. Okay? So, just for simplicity. Now, let's talk about hemoglobin catabolism. Okay? So, apparently, yung ating hemoglobin, di ba, it can be formed from our nitrogens sa ating amino acid, okay? So, it actually contains 4 nitrogens na. However, yung ating hemoglobin, just like any other cells in the body, they need to be replaced every 4 months, no? So, yun, may lifespan siya na 4 months, okay? So, after 4 months, the hemoglobin will not be able to function well, so it needs to be destroyed. So, when destroying our hemoglobin, may onting processes lang, okay, that can be used so that makagawa ulit tayo ng panibagong products. And apparently, no, look at our body. Kapag nagkaroon ng destruction of our molecule, the byproducts can be reused, no, by the body. Okay? So, yan. So, the hemoglobin is a protein, okay, that is composed of the globin, which is the protein portion. So, 4 na protein yan. So, it's a tetrameric protein. And it contains a heme, okay? So, the heme contains the iron, okay, which makes the entire protein look what it is, no? So, kumbaga yung iron yung nag-hold sa kanilang lahat, no? And of course, iron can also combine with oxygen or CO2 so that our hemoglobin can transport these nutrients. Okay? So, gaya nga ng sabi ko, yung ating mga red blood cell, including hemoglobin na nasa loob nun, it needs to be destroyed, no? Okay? Kasi sometimes it doesn't get efficient na, no? Okay, lalo na kapag matagal na, especially 4 months, no? So, the red blood cells can be broken down in our spleen and liver, no? And yan, so mag-cell lysis siya. Okay? And then the hemoglobin that are in the red blood cell, pwede siya ma-convert into some products. Okay? So the globin protein, okay? So yung proteins ng ating hemoglobin, pwede siya ma-convert into amino acids and it will join the amino acid pool. So kumbaga, mare-recycle uli siya para ma-reform uli siya eventually. Yung iron naman that is included in the heme, okay, pwede siya maging part ng ferritin, okay? So the ferritin is an iron storage protein in the body. And then, itong iron storage protein in the body, yung ferritin, pwede siya uli pagkunan ng iron para makagawa uli ng heme and RBC. Okay? Now naman, the tetrapyrrole carbon, okay, kumbaga ito yung structure ng heme, siya naman yung sisirain in order to create bile pigments. So ito, wala to sa PowerPoint dito, but I will show you, okay, kung paano, kung ano itsura ng heme and paano siya nade-degrade, okay? So again, when red blood cells are destroyed, globin, this is a protein, is hydrolyzed into amino acid and can be reused as it joins the amino acid pool. Yung iron naman sa hemoglobin, okay, pwede siya maging ferritin, okay? So it is an iron carrying protein and it can be reused. The heme naman itself can be converted into bilirubin, okay? And that bilirubin can enter the liver and can be converted further into what's called a bile. Okay, so pwede siya gamitin as a bile, no? And it will be excreted in the feces. Okay, so yan. So this is to show the degradation of heme from heme to biliverdin and bilirubin. Okay, so yan. So this is the heme, dito kumakabit yung iron, and yung iron, ito yung kukuha ng oxygen and CO2. Okay? So mangyayari, puputulin yan yung iron, kakabit yan sa ferritin, tapos yung naging natirang structure na to, yan, to, biliverdin, pwede yan maging converted into bilirubin. And yung bilirubin na yan, mapupunta yan sa ating gallbladder, and eventually, mare-release din siya sa body, no? Together with other byproducts, no? In the form of feces. Okay? So, yun. Anyway, let's go back to this PowerPoint. So, yun. Yung ating, yung tetrapyrrole, yung ating heme without iron, pwede siya maging component ng bile. Okay? So, yun. So, these are some of the byproducts, no? Yung biliverdin, ito yung kulay green in color, kaya nga verdin, verde. Bilirubin, ito naman yung reddish-orange color na pigment sa bile. Okay, yan yung end product niyan. The stercobilin, I'm not really familiar with that, but that is the brownish bile color daw. And the urobilin, ayan daw yung yellowish. No? So of course, familiar tayo na yung bile pigment is mostly green, okay? And sometimes it's dark, no? Probably due to the presence of bilirubin and the stercobilin, no? So anyway, yung mga bile na yan, galing pala sila sa ating dugo. Kaya siya dark, okay? So yan. So normally, the body excretes around 1 to 2 milligrams of bile in the urine and 250 to 350 milligrams of it in the feces. No? So normal lang na minsan, ito, kung may alaga kayong pusa, no? Kapag may problem daw pala yan sa bile, minsan yung feces nila may kulay green, no? Even in humans naman, no? May ganong cases, pero very rare, no? Minsan may green doon even though hindi ka kumain ng gulay. So that's probably the bile excreted, no? Okay? However, there is an imbalance, no, sa removal ng bilirubin. Tandaan, kailangan ma-release yan sa body. So, magkakaroon ka ng jaundice. No? And jaundice is a disease, okay, that is characterized by the yellowing of the body. Okay? So, yun. So, ano pa yung mga effect ng jaundice? So, jaundice is a condition kung saan since hindi mo natatanggal yung bilirubin mo, naninilaw ka. Okay? So, naninilaw yung mata, naninilaw yung skin, ayan. Okay? And, pwede siya maging indicator na ikaw ay may HEPA, meron kang gallstones, tumors. Okay? So, yan. Normally, hindi naman daw kailangan i-treat. Okay? Pero, of course, pag may ganun, medyo dapat mag-worry ka. Okay? So let's have this question. The degradation of heme from hemolysis produces the blank product, which is converted to blank. Okay? Tandaan, from heme, magiging biliverdin, and then eventually bilirubin. Okay? So that's letter B. Okay? So yun. Ang galing ng body, no? Nare-recycle niya lahat, no? Even yung red blood cell natin. Okay? So, yan. Walang tapon sa body. Yung mga tinatapon, yun yung mga hindi na kailangan talaga. No? Such as the bilirubin, the amine, okay? The ammonia in the form of urea. Yan. Very smart body natin. Now, let's take a look into sulfur naman, okay? Kasi ang alam natin yung mga nitrogen, pwede siya gamitin talaga, no? In transamination, oxidative deamination, so on and so forth. But now let's take a look into how sulfur are being digested in the body. Okay, so let's take a look into the biodegradation of our cysteine kasi may sulfur siya. So our biodegradation of cysteine happens in two steps. First, you should have your transamination process so that yung amine pwede siya ma-convert into a ketone. And that after nyan, pwede tayong magkaroon ng another process releasing the thiol group, okay? Producing sulfide ion. So we have here our cysteine, okay? So there will be a transamination with our ketoglutarate to produce glutamate and a beta mercaptopyruvate. Okay? This SH here, okay, ito yung mercapto, which is a thiol. It can be removed by hydrolysis, no? Okay? So that we will get pyruvate from our cysteine. And then itong H2S, pwede siya magamit in the body apparently. Okay? So yun. So that's the biodegradation. Magpuproduce siya ng H2S. And later makikita natin saan siya ginagamit. Okay? So ang idea is that the cysteine can indeed be converted into pyruvate. Huh? Ayun yung nasa list natin earlier. If your body wants to produce the cysteine naman, so you need to have a serine, which is your precursor, and then that serine can be converted into cysteine in two steps. Okay? So the first step will be the condensation, okay, or the activation and the condensation producing O-acetylserine, okay? So magsasama yung ating acetyl coenzyme A and the serine, so it will get activated. And then yung H2S na na-produce natin from the biodegradation, pwede siya sumama to form our cysteine, okay? So yan. How about the sulfates naman? Diba? Some of our food may sulfate, no? So, in the sulfate naman, pwede mo siya gamitin, okay? Pwede mo siya incorporate sa ating mga biomolecules, no? Kunwari, kumain ka ng mga products na maraming sulfate, no? Ano daw mangyayari? Okay? So, it can get incorporated in two steps, no? So, step one is that your sulfate will get activated and that you will produce an adenosine 5' phosphosulfate, okay, or the APS. And that APS, okay, will be phosphorylated again to produce 3' phosphoadenosine 5' phosphosulfate or PAPS. Then, pag nakaproduce ka na ng PAPS, it will be reduced, okay? So, it will be eventually reduced into sulfite ion and your adenosine monophosphate. And yung sulfite ion mo can be further reduced by the NADPH to produce sulfide. So, kapag nakaproduce ka ng sulfide, pwede maging H2S yan, okay? So, yung sulfide ion mo, pwede maging H2S, and you know, H2S can be used in the formation of your cysteine, okay? So, yun. So, puputulin yan lang. So, from sulfate, magiging magiging sulfite siya eventually after 2 steps, and that sulfite can be further reduced into sulfide ion. And yung sulfide ion, together with the protons in the body, it can be converted to H2S. Okay? And then yung H2S, kailangan yon sa pag-produce ng cysteine sa body natin. Okay? So, yun. So, ano yung purpose ng H2S? No? Hindi naman siya automatically nire-remove agad sa body natin. So, there are many purposes of H2S, okay, or hydrogen sulfide, such as it can help regulate our vascular flow of blood pressure. So, it can actually act as a vasodilator. Dilator, ibig sabihin pampaluwag ng ating mga blood vessels. Okay? It can also influence the brain function. Okay? So, apparently, brain levels of H2S are lower than normal in cases of Alzheimer's disease. Okay? So, may effect pala yung H2S sa Alzheimer. And also in type 1 diabetes. So, if you have too much H2S, that leads to the reduced insulin production, leading to rise of glucose in your body. Yan. So, let's try this problem. In the degradation of the sulfur-containing amino acid cysteine, sulfur is released in the form of, alam natin, hydrogen sulfide. Okay? So, yan naman yung mapoproduce from our cysteine when it is degraded. Okay? So, actually, dito tapos na yung ating lesson. Pero daanan ko na lang yung ibang slide. Okay? So, dito dapat tapos na tayo. Daanan na lang natin yung ibang slides. No? So, let's talk about the interrelationship of metabolic pathway. O, you know naman that yung carbohydrate metabolism, lipid metabolism, and protein metabolism are very intertwined with one another. No? Papansin mo that some of the carbohydrate metabolism intermediates are used in the production of proteins. Some proteins are being converted into intermediates that are used in Krebs cycle and glycolysis as well. No? So sa lipids, ganun din. Okay? So, changing one pathway can affect many other pathways. No? So that's why whenever you want to take a diet, you really have to consult your dietitian or your physician. Okay? Kasi, when you do something, no, kunwari, kailangan kasi talaga ng body, carbohydrate, lipid, and protein. So, kunwari, nag-ketogenic diet ka nga, so, puro ketones ka, lipids, no? Matinding effect niyan sa ibang parts ng ating body, no? Kasi alam nyo that some of the amino acids in our body can be obtained from carbohydrate metabolism, di ba? Yung 3PG, pwede siya ma-convert to certain amino acids, no? The pyruvate can be converted into certain amino acids, no? So, ibig sabihin, if bigla ka na lang mag-keto diet, it will drastically change your body. Okay? They are very interconnected to one another. Okay? So, yun. So, that's why, before you even commit to a certain diet, such as ketogenic diet, ask your physician. Not because it works for others, meaning it will work for you. Okay? Ganun. Hindi naman tayo pare-parehas ng body. Hindi naman tayo pare-parehas ng nutritional requirements. No? So, that's why always ask your dietitian. Okay? So, kunwari, in the case of feasting, okay? So, kunwari, overeating ka naman. So, it will cause your body to store a limited amount of glycogen and the rest are fat, no? Okay? So, yan. Pag fasting naman, di ka kumakain, your body will use the glycogen and fat for energy production. Okay? So, kapag feasting or overeating, ayun, so, yung body mo, yung mga sobrang glucose and fatty acids, ko-convert niya yun into fat and glycogen, adipose tissue and glycogen. Kaya tayo nagkakabilbil. Okay? And then yung mga fasting, hindi ka kumakain, so doon naman nila gagamitin yung glycogen into glucose, okay? Okay, and glucogenesis, okay? And glycogenolysis, okay? And then yung fat through beta oxidation, diretso Krebs cycle yan. So, however, in the cases of starvation, in starvation cases, your proteins are being actually degraded by the body, no? Kasi tandaan nyo, kailangan natin ng proteins, di ba? And the proteins can be obtained from fish, from plants, and even from karne ng let's say baboy, no? Kung wala ka ng source ng protein, ang gagawin ng body mo, yung sarili na niya mismo yung kakainin niya. Okay? Kasi kailangan niya mag-produce ng energy. And at the same time, kailangan ng body mo mag-produce ng proteins din. No? So, yung body na mismo yung uubusin niya. Okay? So, that's why in cases of severe malnutrition, sobrang payat nila, wala silang muscle mass kasi nga, yung proteins dun sa muscles nila, eventually, ginagamit din ng body niya mismo para mag-produce ng energy. Okay? So, yun. So, that's very dangerous. That's very dangerous. Kasi, of course, all body parts naman may mga importance yan sa atin. Kaya, always be keen with your diet. Okay? Do not commit immediately to one diet alone without any recommendation from your physician and nutritionist. Okay? And of course, do not starve yourself kasi literally, yung body mo kakainin niya sarili niya. Okay? So, yun. That's very dangerous. Okay? Let's try this problem. So, during starvation, what is used as a source of energy after the glycogen storage or the glycogen stores have been depleted? So, amino acids of degraded protein which are used to synthesize glucose. Pwede. Body fats that are converted to ketone bodies and used as source of brain energy. Pwede. C, glycogen stores are never depleted. So, alam natin yung C, mali agad, no? Kasi nga, nade-deplete talaga yung glycogen, especially in cases of starvation or fasting. So, A and B yung pwede natin isagot dyan. Okay? So, yung amino acids, pwede yan ma-degrade, no, during starvation. So, it is true. The fatty fats can be converted into ketone bodies, okay? And can be used as storage for as a source of brain energy. So, that is true. Okay? So, ganun. So, ang daming nangyayari kapag ikaw ay starved na. Ito, although dito kasama sa, again, itong part na to, hindi talaga to kasama sa, sa magiging quiz nyo. Pero isama ko na kasi nasa PowerPoint din naman. So, let's talk about B vitamins, no, and their role in protein metabolism. So apparently, there are many variations of vitamin B. Okay, so may B1, B2, B3, di ba? So B12, something like that. So apparently, they from these vitamins na to, they can be integrated in the protein metabolism. No? Okay, so for example, the niacin, okay, can be used in oxidative deamination reaction, and the PLP can be used in the transamination reaction. Okay? So, ito lang yung patunay na kailangan natin talaga ng ating vitamins. So again, what's PLP? Ito yung pyroxidal phosphate which is coming from vitamin B6. Okay? So, yun yung PLP. Nakita nyo na yung PLP kanina. Okay? Nasa yun? Yun dun sa alanine, naging siya, from alanine naging pyruvate. Okay? So, yun yung PLP na yan. Ito yung integration ng ating vitamin B in the protein metabolism. So, of course, you have your 20 amino acid from your amino acid pool. It can be transaminated, so we can get either 20 keto acids or glutamate na. So again, yung PLP, ito yung ating peroxidyl phosphate na galing sa vitamin B6. Okay? So yun. So yan, so by transamination, pwede tayong makagawa ng glutamate or pwede naman 20 keto acids. Itong 20 keto acids na to, they can eventually turn into citric acid cycle and non-citric acid cycle. Okay? Ayan. So, anong mga molecules ang kailangan natin dito? So, the forms of vitamin B na kailangan to produce our citric acid cycle intermediate from the 20 keto acids are the PLP, the biotin, and the vitamin B12. Okay? So, for the non-citric acid cycle, ito naman yung mga kailangan, no? So, THF, coenzyme A, FAD, PLP, TPP, NAD+. Okay? So, dito naman, from the amino group, okay, so from the glutamate, kailangan natin uli ng PLP in order to produce aspartate. Okay? And then yung glutamate, it can undergo oxidative deamination to produce ammonium ion, and that ammonium ion can join our urea cycle, eventually forming urea. Okay? So, yan. Yun yung role ng ating vitamin B sa ating protein metabolism and our metabolic processes. Okay? So, yan. Let's try to answer this problem. Transamination reactions require the cofactor PLP, which involves, sinabi ko na kanina, ano yung source ng PLP? Vitamin B6. Okay? So again, PLP stands for peroxidyl phosphate. Okay? Ay, patapos na tayo actually. What best describes what happens to the protein after eating high-protein meal? So letter A, digestion begins in the stomach, then moves to the small intestine where complete digestion occurs. Free amino acids are stored in the amino acid pool. So, kakabasa pa lang natin, alam natin siya na yung sagot. Okay? Siya na yung sagot kasi basically yan yung dinescribe natin earlier, di ba? So, letter B, sabi dyan, denatured in stomach, yes. And then move to small intestine for complete digestion. Not really. Okay. Ay, yeah, pwede naman. Pwede yung letter B pero kulang siya. Nakalimutan niya na saan mapupunta yung mga free amino acid. So, kailangan sinabi niya yung amino acid pool. So, even though B is parang okay, letter A is the best. Okay? At saka medyo may flaw din pala yung letter B kasi sabi niya lang doon, denatured in stomach. I remember, napuputol din naman yung amino acids from the protein in the stomach with the help of pepsin. Letter C, protein digestion begins in the mouth. Mali agad, so wag na natin basahin. Tandaan, the digestion happens in the stomach with the help of HCl for denaturation and the pepsin for the partial degradation. Okay? And then letter D, protein digestion begins in mouth. Mali agad. So, ang malapit na answers natin dito is either A or B. Pero again, yung B, medyo incomplete siya. And then, sinabi nyo lang kasi dito, proteins are denatured in stomach. That is not completely correct. Okay? Partially correct siya. Okay? Kasi other than being denatured, proteins can be digested in the stomach, okay, with the help of enzymes pepsin. So the correct answer is letter A. Ito, basahin natin. This one's kind of interesting. In the early 1990s, nitric oxide was discovered in the body as a gaseous chemical messenger. What effect does nitric oxide have in the body? Okay? So, basahin natin. It stimulates the urea cycle. Okay, so wala naman tayo nakita na nitric oxide doon. Letter C, it rapidly converted. Letter B, it plays a part maintaining blood pressure. So, tabi mo muna kasi wala naman tayong idea about that. Letter C, it is rapidly converted into an amino group. Wala tayong nakitang ganyan sa reactions kanina. So letter A, X, letter C, X. Letter D, it carries messages into the mitochondria to signal the production of large amount of energy uh, called for by the hormone epinephrine. Okay, so yung B and D medyo unsure tayo. But according to the PowerPoint, the correct answer is letter B. Okay? So yun. So it plays a part maintaining blood pressure and is found in the brain where it may play a part in long-term memory. Okay? So anyway, I think trivial lang to. So at least lahat tayo natuto this time. Okay? So that's the end of the protein metabolism, and that concludes our semester. So good luck with your studies, and do not forget that we will have our uh, review on December 7 or December 10. Okay, so update ko na lang kayo. So next week you will have your quizzes on lipids and amines. So if there are things that you need to be that you need clarification, just let me know. Okay, so thank you and bye bye.